So that'll give you a basic idea on what it's like. I did
So the child that came in was actually the one we were talking about that made a Dragonborn character. Hey Jaden, do you want to tell them a little bit about Dragon?
Fire, fire, fire all over the place.
Fire, fire all over the place.
Now, I use him as explaining his character to you guys because had it been a couple of years ago, he would not have felt open to even say a word. So this is one of the things that how gaming has actually helped him. It helped him form communication in his own way, which is great, so that he can communicate with everybody back and forth. Amanda?
So for tabletop gaming, we sometimes may look away, have trouble with eye contact, but even if we're not looking at you, we're still listening. The face often has more information. It can be very overwhelming, so if I'm talking to someone, it may look like I'm making eye contact, I'm looking at their nose. Makes it a little easier. Sensory overload could be anything from touch. Jaden is very sensitive to touch. Sound, visual, if something is way too bright. I sometimes have to wear sunglasses inside because of how bright our LED lights are. But this is a video to show you it's a simulation on sensory overload so you can get an idea on what it is. Okay. So that will give you a brief idea on what it might feel like. So we may have a short attention span. As I said before, we are listening even if we aren't looking at you. We do need to fidget. It helps us focus. So we can, this is more pertaining to tabletop gaming like Dungeons and Dragons and things like that. Not all of us are able to speak, so I know some DMs don't like technology being used during games, but sometimes they are necessary. We may offer things in games that no one's ever heard, never thought of. So when I was playing in a Undermountain campaign for Dungeons and Dragons, I was given a wand to transport the dead. So while I'm dropping a dead bugbear on top of a live one, that they weren't sure what I was going to do with it, and that really wasn't what they were expecting.
Now, speaking as a DM, every good DM knows their players. They understand how they play, what they like to do, how they formulate their characters and whatnot. So any good DM worth their salt will use that in their storyline and be able to compensate for what their characters does. Now, this goes into showing how the gaming community as a whole is actually really more accepting of everybody, all the way across. Whether it be somebody that's like that's very hyper or somebody that's autistic, they're able to what's the word I'm looking for? Where they're able to change the way that they're thinking and the way that they do things in order to compensate for their players, take everything into account.
To add to that, there are things people call them obsessions, we call them special interests. For me, it's fire. So I'm usually playing a wizard that likes to cast a lot of fire, and a lot of the people that I play with do accommodate that. That keeps the players interested. Like Jaden's special interest is Dragonborn, and he is allowed to play that, but with certain limitations, and that keeps him interested.
What are some of the things that help you out a lot while you're playing?
A lot, being able to fidget with something, or knowing when my turn is coming, because if something is out of order, it may throw me off, it may throw Jaden off. And when we're playing the online D&D games, like on Roll20, they have a box with the turn order, and even non-combat turn order. Because if we don't do that, we may feel like we're not able to speak. It may be a little overwhelming.
It's more along the visuals. Visuals can help. Absolutely.
Does anybody have any questions? Sure.
So you mentioned that video gaming
Mm-hmm.
Can you elaborate?
Sure. Okay. So we started playing Sea of Thieves about soon after it came out, and you have a headset and people communicating with you. Me, myself, I didn't start speaking until I was 5 years old. And Jaden, too. So he was not speaking verbally a lot, and he was able to express himself to other players that he didn't know, which we were always there supervising, making sure he was safe. And he was able to have a long gaming session communicating with other players. He had no idea who they were, and I've never seen that before.
One of the prime reasons for that is most of these games, like she said, Sea of Thieves, you actually have to play the game to work with other players to accomplish a goal. So it helps to stabilize and show that communication back and forth between the crew, like basically what we call the crew. That's everybody that's on your team or whatnot. So by having that kind of communication, it actually strengthens up the ability and gives you more confidence to go out there and start speaking with other people.
Right, and when I played, I started playing, I figured out that you can actually have a really big explosion in skeletons, and I would have other players setting that up for me, and you have them walking down to the shore carrying these gunpowder barrels, and they said, do your thing, and then you get like the chain reaction going, and so I mean, it builds up confidence, communication skills, social skills, and not being in a situation where you think that the way you are isn't good enough. So it's doing it in a very, very positive way.
It also gives you a platform if you're nervous about speaking with one another. You can still hear people, but you can shut off the mic and not really speak into it. You'll have like different where you can type in your responses, or they'll have automatic responses. So you can actually just go, okay, I'm not really comfortable talking to somebody, but let me look at those the preloaded responses. Oh, this is how I want to display a message to them. So that makes it a little bit easier too. A lot of it is it's that confidence building. The confidence building and helping you get over that fear of talking. Because you may think, oh, it's not a big deal, but not everybody's like that. There are people in there that are definitely afraid of public speaking. They get really high anxiety when they're talking one-on-one with like a teacher or something. So you need to have some kind of outlet that you can use to help you build that confidence up, so that they can overcome that social hurdle, I guess.
That's a good way of putting it.
Any other questions back there?
I actually work with children with autism. My job is primarily to run social skills groups.
Okay.
When teaching things like that, in order to learn these skills, like you were saying, the eye contact and the communication and turn taking even, aside from visuals, what are some things that help with those kind of cues?
When we're playing Dungeons and Dragons, sometimes I have to be brought back to the real world, is how I call it. Sometimes a sound, or say, hey, this means that it's your turn, or something like that. Most of it is visual.
Question?
Sure.
A couple of questions, actually. What is your rule that you have found for the amount of gaming that you allow your children on a daily basis? And what if the games aren't multiplayer? They're Roblox or Fortnite, where they're kind of on their own on the screen. Have you found that is helpful? And if so, how much?
We allow 1 to 2 hours per day at maximum. For the games that are not multiplayer on the same device, we have several devices around the house where they play each other. Like we have this PC and an Xbox. We actually have 2 Xboxes so they can all play together and on the PC. But a lot of times they do just want to play by themselves, and it is very good for hand-eye coordination and problem solving, and that we only allow 1 to 2 hours per day of screen time for that reason. Otherwise, some get very overwhelmed, get very upset, and that's not the purpose of these games.
To piggyback off yours, games like the Roblox and like Minecraft, those games really help to bring out their creative process. For example, if they want to build something or if they want to draw something, not really sure how to do it, if they see it on the screen first and get used to doing it on the screen, what'll happen next, and I've actually seen this happen, is that they'll try to do it with either building blocks like Legos or other wooden blocks, or they will take it and start drawing. It gives them some kind of an inspiration. It gives them something that makes them go, hey, I'm good at this. So it's all about that confidence. They'll come back and it's amazing to see some structures that's been put together. In Minecraft, prime example, there's a house. One of them had made a house that was a spiral up. A few weeks later, they had a block set. They went and copied that same spiral pattern, and it was structurally sound. So they were putting like platforms on it. They were decorating like other characters. So in that aspect, as long as you're monitoring what they're playing and reinforcing the good, because that's the key, is that there are some things out there that are not so good for certain ages and whatnot. But you just reinforce the good stuff with them, like that the way to get creative. Because they'll come out with stories of their own. They'll play like through a game or through a movie even. They'll watch it and they're like, oh, that story's cool, but what would have happened if this happened? And then they start building on that thought, and they'll start coming up with their own stories, their own little piece, and again, it goes right to that creativity. Once you get that creativity going, it's good. They're focused on it.
To build off of that, our son Nikki, which is this little boy dressed like Goku, he sees a Pokemon, he can recreate it with Legos every single time. We had a friend come over who knows that she loves Mudkip. He actually made a Mudkip out of Legos and showed it to her. And it's just amazing how he can replicate it with just square blocks. Any other questions? Sure.
Have you ever tried something like grand strategy games? You're over slide.
Oh, and I'm also good at drawing.
Yes, you are, Nikki.
Well, I was gonna get older. Never mind.
I can't hear you. I'm sorry.
Grand strategy games.
Strategy game?
Grand strategy games.
Grand strategy game. Strategy games. Yes, they have actually played strategy games. Warhammer, definitely. They actually have come up with some unique ways of maneuvering their pieces. It definitely does come into effect too. If you start playing and then you show them like certain patterns, they'll take those patterns and then they'll build on them. Like say, okay, I'm going to come in from the top here and the bottom here to get height advantage and whatnot. Well, what you don't realize is that you covered here and here, but you forgot to cover here. So the kids will go, hey, that's open. I got an easy attack on them. So that's one of the they'll see it. They'll start seeing the patterns. They'll see the patterns and they'll build on what they can do with that pattern or try. It's all a method of let's try, see if it works. If it works, great, they'll do it again. If it doesn't work, then they'll try something else.
And on Warhammer, it really helps if it helps when they help create their own miniatures. So we do a whole big, we set aside some time to paint them in the different colors and patterns that they like, and they get to play with them. Usually when you paint something, you put it in the cabinet and you don't touch it, but they're actually able to touch them and play with them, and it's absolutely fine. That's a big motivator too. Yes?
So what are your thoughts on games like that utilize VR, since you brought up touch and stuff?
It depends on the person. See, for Jaden and myself, that would be too much visual sensory stimuli. I wouldn't be able to handle it, but someone like Aaron, he'd be able to, where he's not as sensitive to sensory stimuli. He's what we call a sensory seeker. My son and I are sensory avoiders. So it really depends on the person. Any other questions? Sure.
Have you guys tried like card games like Magic or like any other like Uno or like regular playing deck cards like that with like kids like that?
Yes, actually.
Other people like that?
Yes, Jaden actually played in a full-on Pokemon tournament, and he had a hard time verbalizing. But, and I have to give credit to all the people that played against him. They're wonderful. This goes up to the credit for gaming community overall, whether it be board games, whether it be D&D or even the CCGs. But what happened was what Jaden did was he went and he would gesture and point to what he wanted to do because he did not have that confidence at the time to verbalize how he wanted to really have his Pokemon and what actions they did. So he ended up going through the whole tournament like that and ended up becoming complete undefeated. So he got the top spot there. And again, I know the question was on strategy. That's where his strategy on how he wanted and what Pokemon. He was able to develop all of that, how he wanted to move each piece, and he evaluated each turn and adjusted so that he was able to beat his opponents. So.
Yes, and going on that, when you build different decks, like we're avid Magic players. I've been playing since '95. Where you can build a deck based on your special interest. Whether it be when the cat creatures came out and mirrored in, or the slivers, or anything like that, you can build a deck based on your interest, and the attention span for the game becomes longer. For example, I forget what set the witch, the cauldron, and the salamander. So they work together, and I used a card called Trading Post, where it would be like throwing the goat. It would make a goat, and then throwing the goat in there to gain life. So to me, I thought it was goofy that it actually made my attention span a little bit longer for that. So the card games are excellent. We were doing that since he was playing Pokemon since before he grew up.
And one of the grand things, though, for that, especially with the card games, is that they'll come up with a theme. They want a theme. They want a certain Pokemon or certain Pokemons in that deck, for example. So then they just build around it. And we sit down, we ask them, hey, what do you want? And they'll tell us, and then they'll say, I want this, this, and this, or they'll go in and actually pick out everything that they want. And it doesn't matter whether they win or lose on it. It's because they're playing the thing that they have fun, that they are excited about. So, and that's the thing that we try to push, especially, is with that whole positive is, hey, if it's a game that you're playing, it's a game. You're playing it to have fun. You don't have to worry about winning and losing.
Any other questions? Go ahead.
So you said like the community as a whole is like more accepting, but like we live in the real world, so you're gonna bound to find one person who's just a bad apple. So how do you deal with someone like that? Like someone who like just doesn't know any better.
How did you handle Buckrat? It's very similar.
Yeah, unfortunately, that does happen. There's a lot of people out there that are not as welcoming. Fortunately, with the communities, you have more that are welcoming than anything. And nine times out of 10, if you're like, hey, all right, man, look, if you're not having fun, let's say that we have a player that comes into a game and they have a problem with playing with like Amanda or somebody. At that point, personally speaking as a DM, I'm like, listen, this is what's going to happen. I'm running the game. You don't like it? Go play a different game. I'm kind of a little bit brash like that, but it's kind of how we do it. And then they'll try to start an argument, but your group will normally back you up. The people you know the most. And a lot it's not often that you find somebody that's like that. That'll be in this situation anyway. Within the gaming community, it's not often that you find somebody that's like hardcore against somebody for whatever reason. When you do, it's like rare. It's rare. A lot of people are just like a little bit like, I don't want to upset anybody and I don't know how to handle because I don't know. In that case, if that's the situation, the best thing is we usually educate them, simply put, by going, okay, well, the reason why they're doing this is because, imagine, let's say that there's loud noise. Everybody's having fun. Somebody has screams at the top of their lungs. Now, Amanda has to cover her ears because it's a sensory thing. Everybody's like, oh, what's her issue? And then you sit and the group, at least one or two people out of the group will know. They're just like, hey, she can't handle loud noises because of X, Y, Z, whatever the case may be. And most of the time, the group's like, oh, okay, that's interesting to know. And then the next time around, when they get excited, they'll either go, oh, sorry, or they'll try to keep it down a little bit lower. And that's one of the things of being able to adapt. But as far as the people that just do not want to adapt to the game thing, we try to educate them, but if they don't want to listen, it's like, okay, well, this is what the game is. If you don't like it, I mean, you're not going to have fun, obviously, so you should go find a different game.
And a lot of the time the games some people have preconceived notions about certain people, whether it be autistic or Jewish people or pagans, doesn't matter. A lot of times with these games you play with a lot of different people, it opens your eyes up and you, without, I guess, being forcefully educated, you learn as you interact with these people and winds up being a pleasant experience for everybody involved. And as far as he was talking, we do play one game on Roll20, which is an internet-based Dungeons & Dragons game. It has digital dice, you speak, there's voice, there's text chat, and one person that know me posted in a very flashy gift, and it was just really overwhelming because it was really in your face. Someone else caught that and was able to throw a couple lines of text, kind of hide it, and then we spoke about it, and that was the end of it. Or if they feel like they're going to scream, they're going to warn me, put your headphones on, and then I do, and then they do it, and everybody's fine. What we call ear defenders they almost look like firearm earmuffs, and they make them for kids and adults. We have at least 5 sets in our house where we're constantly passing around, whether we're going to Cub Scouts, camping, or playing a game.
Now, the situation she was referring to with that one person that was, as we had said before, really anti-whatever and decided to post all these things. The rest of the group, it was like sharks in the water. They just tore him apart until he left, verbally. Which I don't recommend it, but it shows that they're out there to support instead of what's the word? They're out there to support you. They're not out there to hurt you. And when they see somebody else going after you, they're like right there to back you up. So. Any other questions?
You guys have mentioned a couple games already that have helped your children develop their communication skills. What would you say is a good first game to start with?
Good first game to start with. I would. This is my opinion. I would start with a Minecraft type game. I have not met too many people that don't like building, and it's really about that building. If I had to go on the video game side, I would recommend that.
Because when you have a child who likes destroying things, and they build this big house just to blow it up with TNT, and you see them giggle and jumping and hand flapping, it's the best thing. And they get very excited and they want to play more. Yes?
Recently I have noticed, like in the newer games, the first thing that they let you do is adjust the brightness of the game. Do you guys do that right away, or do you guys put it at a certain point, and then from there work with a child or the person to see how far they, or like how bright or dim they want it?
That's really the great thing about computers right now. Say on this, there are actually buttons along the top that you can adjust the brightness without having to go into all these different settings. We don't do it, I've never seen it in individual games, but like when Jaden was playing, yeah, you want to demonstrate that?
It's not going to show up on there.
Oh, it's not?
No.
Alright. But they have the hotkeys on both PC and Mac. We use both platforms.
Have you seen that?
As far as dimming and taking care of the brightness on the game, most of the time you can tell right away if it's too dim or if it's too bright for them. What'll happen is you'll get like the anxiety. You'll start to recognize that, hey, they're getting upset. What's going on? And if they can verbalize, they'll say, hey, it's too bright, or I can't see it. So then you can show them how to go in and adjust the settings for that. And after that, they usually get it right away. As far as us personally, everybody knows what their limit is, and it's usually right around the same. So we got the brightness and everything that's just like smack dab in the middle, and that seems to be working out well. The other thing that you can do is adjust the lights, the actual physical lights. You can turn them on, off, or if you have a dimmer switch, dim them down. I've heard that that's not good for you. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. I don't do studies for those.
It's not good for you, but if it comes down to comfort versus what they say, I have to go with what makes the person more comfortable. Any other questions? Sure.
So how would you say gaming companies have accommodated to make video gaming more inclusive?
I have seen they add in caption more, because some people can't handle the spoken word or don't like speech. They add the text chat instead of speaking. They do allow for volume control. Like if you go into the settings, you can set how loud the sound effects are versus how loud the other people's voices are. Allowing for the brightness of the screen. And for example, a game we play is Ark, because who doesn't like writing around dinosaurs? The beginning music causes a lot of anxiety, so I went into the settings and turned the intro music off, because it is very intense. So they do allow for little settings like that, which don't mean much to some people, but for other people, it really means between playing and not playing.
Yeah, it seems that they've really taken that comfort level into account, because I don't see very many games that don't have options with, especially the visual or not the audios. As far as like she was talking about with the chats and the volumes, that's definitely one way that they've definitely taken into account every certain sensory issues. Some game systems have done things with their visual as well. I'm going to use the 3DS as an example. There is a switch on the side where you can adjust how you want 3D image, or you can shut it off completely, so you don't have that. So it's all on your comfort level, how you feel. You can sit there and adjust it to the way that you like it.
And going off of the 3DS, they came out with the 2DS because of this reason. A lot of people, even one of my good friends who has really bad astigmatism, cannot handle the 3D imaging. Because there's, even if you turn off the 3D on a 3DS, something still comes through as 3D. So she went and bought herself a 2DS to overcome this so she doesn't have to not play. And what you were saying about accommodating for games, one game that I can't actually play, but it's on PlayStation VR, is a mouse that uses American Sign Language in the whole game. Any other questions? Sure.
So, like, what are your thoughts on like older games and older hardware that don't really accommodate because it wasn't available at the time? Especially when you go back further and further, like the more like the rules that we have now either were super lax or didn't even exist. So like you have like a whole bunch of games that are like flashing lights.
For, say for example, my kids love Sonic the Hedgehog. So we have, their uncle had got them, I guess, the version of the classic Genesis that has everything preloaded on, and they know about the flashing lights with the rings and how when they turn, they know when they have to get off because it gets too overwhelming. They love it, but they can only handle a little bit at a time. So it's knowing the person who's playing the game and what the limitations are and the different signs that they're starting to go to be in distress. Not really waiting until it gets really bad. So one of my children will fidget a lot. He will close his eyes, cover his eyes or cover his ears, and that's when we have him take a break. And then when he's ready, he'll go back. Any other questions? Yes, Danny?
You got this, bud. You got it.
You okay? And that's another thing with accommodating people's needs. Say Aaron loves to play, but sometimes he has to take a break. He's type 1 diabetic. So the different beeping that you heard was his pump telling us whether he was too high or too low, and the different beeps have different meanings. So he will stop whatever he's doing and say, hey, I'm low. I can carry cookie frosting in those pouches in his backpack. It's shelf stable, and it'll get him to where he needs to be, and then he can go back to being an 8-year-old. So while we're playing a game, he actually has a teenager in this online game who's also a type 1 diabetic, which helps because she has the same device that he does. And sometimes she'll have to leave to go take her insulin, and the other people in the game are very sensitive to that, which is very, very helpful. Any other questions? Go ahead.
I feel like I have all the questions.
That's fine.
Like, what would you say are like your recommendations, like your best games to like teach children your communication skills, or anything beyond like Minecraft or like
Dungeons and Dragons and tabletop role playing really gives the creative juices flowing, and that really helps with communication because they have to do dialogue and problem solving, and it's not a set thing you have to find or do like in a video game like most of them that the younger kids are playing. The tabletop games really help with communication more than anything.
Well, it not only helps with the communication, but especially with any of the games, you have always a set number of dice, and they all have numbers on it, so they have to add up or subtract those dice for certain scores. So it helps with their arithmetic as well, and strategies. But for a starter game for somebody with communications, I wouldn't necessarily say jump right into D&D. There are other gaming systems out there. There's D6 systems. There's systems for just D10s. If you work with just one type of die and show them how gradually that seems to be a little easier on them, and they'll learn quickly to, okay, here's how we add all this up, and on top of that, you also give them the opportunity to play their character the way that they want to play their character as well.
And for dice, have them pick out their own dice, if they're a certain color or a certain pattern. And when I first started getting into Dungeons and Dragons, he took me over to the local store, and we were living in the mountains in upstate New York, and I saw these dice, which they call ice cream dice. They don't make them anymore, unfortunately, so they look like pastel colors swirled with white. It looks like actual how ice cream is patterned. I got them about 20 years ago, and I still have them and use them quite often. Any other questions?
Let's see.
That's all your queries.
Yes, that's it. Thank you very much for coming and learning about different people as far as gaming goes. Very much appreciated.
This last piece of advice I give to anybody out there who games, especially as a DM or a player, always know your players, because that'll help you build your game. Always know them. Thank you.
Hey, Danny. Hey, Danny. Can you do that?
What's wrong with that?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
They updated the game, which had to restart my whole thing, so I have to get back up. Hi guys.
Say bye, guys.
Goodbye. Hi and bye. Alright.
Any last things for them?
Thank you for tuning in.